For example 8, for a given commodity in pure competition, the number of units produced and the price per unit are determined as the coordinates of the point of intersection of the supply and demand curves. Given the demand curve, P is equal to 50 minus 1 over 20x, and the supply curve, P is equal to 20 plus 1 over 20x. Find the consumer surplus and the producer surplus. And then we're going to illustrate by sketching the supply and demand curves and identifying the surpluses as areas. So for the first part, we have two equations. We have P, which is equal to 50 minus 1 over 20x, which is the demand curve. And then we have the supply curve, which is P is equal to 20 plus 1 over 10x. Now we can graph those two functions like you can see up here, and if we can easily find the point of intersection, then we can do that just by looking at the graph. Otherwise, we can just set these two equations equal to each other because they both are equal to P. So if we set those two equations equal to each other and solve for x, we get x, which is equal to 200. And then plugging x back into the function, or one of the two functions, we get P is equal to 40. So therefore, we have an intersection at P is equal to 40 and x is equal to 200. And now we're going to use the consumer surplus formula. So we know that the value of the lower limit is 0. We know the upper limit is going to be 200 since x is 200. And then we're going to use the function P of x minus P. So P of x being the demand curve, so we have 50 minus 1 over 20x minus the value of P, which is 40. Combine like terms, and we get 10 minus 1 over 20x dx. Then from here, we find the antiderivative, and so we get 10x minus 1 over 40x squared with a lower limit of 0 and upper limit of 200, and that's going to equal 1,000. And again, that's the formula for the consumer surplus. Now for the producer surplus, we have to use the formula for the producer integral. So we're going from 0 to 200. We know that we're going to have a value of P, which is 40, minus, in this scenario, we're using the supply curve. So the supply curve is 20 plus 1 over 10x dx. So distribute, combine like terms. We get 20 minus 1 over 10x dx. Finding the antiderivative, we get 20x minus 1 over 20x squared with a lower limit of 0 and an upper limit of 20, and that's going to equal $2,000.